Hello, podcast listeners. This is your host with the most. You're going to hear me enjoy an ice cream cone in just a few moments, and then Tucker and I are going to break down a brand new Marvel movie. I hope you enjoy this. Heavy spoilers in this episode, so if you haven't seen Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, you might want to go back and enjoy an old episode of JJ Meets World until you can check that one out. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
Maybe we should do a podcast entirely with us having food in our mouths.
I mean, I'm not opposed to that. The ice cream truck just went by my house.
By the way, before we start, today was the third time I've now seen your wife walking around the Moorhead Center Mall. I'm guessing that's where she goes to get her exercise at lunchtime.
It truly is.
Okay. She actually saw me this time and waved at me before I could wave at her.
And you went there to have Tika House.
Yeah. So I'm guessing she was like,
Hey, JJ, I saw Tucker today.
She didn't mention anything about you.
oh, you just knew why I was there.
No, I hate to say this, but I assume that there's nothing else the Moorhead Center Mall has to offer you.
I mean, you're 100% correct.
Okay.
Is Thai Orchid still there? Actually, I haven't even looked. We don't go there. Okay. I would probably go there, but anytime we hit Thai, it's pretty much Leela.
I enjoy Himalayan yak.
I love Himalayan yak.
So, I mean, there are other ones that I've enjoyed over the years, but like...
Right. But I mean, as far as Moorhead Center Mall goes...
Oh, I'm not going into Vicks anytime soon.
No. I'm not going to go speak at the city council meeting or something.
And I think they're moving out of there, aren't they?
Oh, I hope so. I hope they move in.
No, the DMV moved in there.
I have no idea. It's so funny. I mean, obviously my theater is in Moorhead, but I could give two shits about Moorhead and its politics. So I don't really know. But hey, we are rolling. So anytime you want to kick us off, go ahead.
Okay, give me like 4 more bites.
Yeah, you got it. I'm going to take the opportunity to have some Cheez-Its myself.
Over the weekend, I started watching The Only Murders in the Building, which is the new Steve Martin short series on Hulu. And it's hilarious.
That's what I've been hearing. My mom called me the other day, and mom is really good at making things sound like it's about to be terrible, terrible news, and it turns out to be nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And she called and she goes, Tucker, have you heard from your younger brother? And I'm like, I mean, not in the past couple of days. Why? What's up? And she goes, well, Cora, which is his wife, Cora called me. And she said, Maureen, have you talked to Solomon lately? And I said, no. And so now I'm thinking like, oh, my God, what's going on? And then mom goes, oh, they've decided to buy a house here in town. So that's pretty cool, huh? I'm like, God, mom, just, don't, match the tone to the message. And then she immediately transitioned to, I heard Martin Short on the radio today, and he was telling a story about Steve Martin. And that's how I found out about this show.
Martin Short has a really funny bit he tells about Steve Martin, and like the first time he ever met Steve Martin,
that is exactly the bit that mom told me about.
Yeah, and like, I've seen your work. And I noticed he's really been getting a lot of use out of that story lately.
Yeah. JJ, what are you eating right now?
A Schwann's New York style sundae cone.
I could hear it over the microphone. We're not in the same room right now, if the listeners don't know. So that's why we can't see each other's faces.
Would you like me to describe the cone?
Yes, please.
So it is a chocolate waffle cone, at which at the base of the waffle cone, there's like a fudgy half-inch of fudge. Then it is vanilla ice cream with a fudge-like center core built all the way up, and then the top is covered with chocolate chips.
Ooh.
Yep. So there's no nuts on it, which I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's just it's like one of those standard cones with nuts. It's not. This one has only chocolate on it. And I love it. It's my favorite thing. And I get my Schwann's delivery guy to deliver it to me. Probably once a month, I will get like a pack of 12 cones. And so every other day, I enjoy it as a delicious treat.
So a pack of 12 lasts you 24 days?
No, I mean, not necessarily. Usually it lasts me a month, right? So, because there are times when I'm not at home in the evening,
right?
And that's when I would normally consume it. Now, the last time I got a Schwann's delivery, there was a mistake, and I did not correct it.
Uh-oh, what happened?
I was not at home, so I leave this like freezer bag out, and so I was getting 2 boxes of these sundae cones. Because it was so hot out. Remember when it was so hot this summer?
I do remember.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to eat one of these every night.
just to cool down my innards.
Just to make sure that I'm still alive. So I was getting 2 boxes of these, and I was also getting a box of these half French bread cheesy garlic toasts.
Okay.
So they get delivered, and my in-laws are here when they're delivered. So the guy was a little flustered because he was expecting to put it into the bag, but my in-laws were able to actually bring it in and put it in the freezer. I did not know this. And so I get home like an hour later, and the Schwann's guy is pulling up, and he hands me off a bag of 2 boxes of the sundae cones and a bag of my cheesy garlic bread. And so I go downstairs, and when I open the freezer, I'm like, what? And that's when my mother-in-law was like, yeah, we actually, we were here when the Schwann's guy was here. So 2 separate Schwann's guys came to my house, and they double delivered. I only got charged once, and I did not correct it.
Ooh, what would have happened then had they left it in the thing with the second Schwann's guy showed up, looked at it and gone, oh, this has already happened, and left.
Correct.
Got it. So your parents-in-law hooked you up.
Yeah, big time. And I got to be honest, they did not taste as good. I think I was tasting a little bit of guilt, a little bit of remorse for not informing the Schwann's Corporation that I got away with an extra $15 worth of frozen goods.
Well, I'm hoping that PT Schwann doesn't listen to this show, because we're going to get in deep shit.
Oh, I know that we're going to get in deep shit.
You're going to get in it, and I'm going to get in it because I'm associating with you.
Right. You're now an accomplice.
Apparently, after the fact.
If if the FBI shows up and they're like, tell me what you know about JJ Gordon and Schwann's, you're going to have to squeal like a pig.
It's going to happen immediately. I can't withstand that pressure. I mean, it's the government. You're supposed to tell them nothing but the truth.
Tucker, don't forget, snitches get stitches.
I know, and I don't like needles either, so that's going to suck as well.
Have you ever full on ratted someone out for something?
Oh, definitely. I can't remember when it was. It was definitely as a child, because I was not a tough kid. So like my only recourse was the fact that I really liked adults and had no problem telling them what was going on. So I definitely tattled at once or twice as a kid. But I don't feel bad about it when you're a kid. I think it's when you're an adult and you're kind of screwing over your fellow adult, unless what they're doing is just heinous. But if it's, getting a double delivery of Schwann's ice cream, I think that's fine.
Now, I've told this story to a couple people, and their reactions are totally different. Some people are like, hey, man, that was their mistake, and you just get to benefit from it. And then there are other people who treat me like I'm a monster because they're like, that probably came out of somebody's paycheck, or, gosh, you could have called them and let them know.
How shitty would that be to be a Schwann's delivery person? If at the end of the month they just looked at everything and said, "Oh, we're light 1 box of ice cream sandwiches. Better take it out of Perkins' check."
Then Perkins goes home and he's like, sorry, honey, I know that you had your heart set on, going on that trip to Bermuda, but I'm exactly 14.44 short.
Last night I treated myself to 2 ice cream sandwiches in the same sitting. I didn't get up, go to the freezer, get an ice cream sandwich, sit down, eat it, and then decide, you know what? I'm going to go back for a second. I went to the freezer and grabbed 2, knowing I was going to eat 2. And you know what, JJ? It was absolutely everything I thought it would be.
Both.
I'm not ashamed to admit it.
You ate them independently.
Yeah. I mean, one after the other, but right in the same sitting.
Okay, so let's get fully on in the details so that I can picture this in my mind. Did you unwrap both of them, or did you leave one wrapped while you were eating the other?
I left one wrapped while eating the other because I wanted to try to slow down the ice cream melt and happening inside of it as much as I possibly could. But I also eat ice cream so fast that, I unwrapped the first one. 90 seconds later, I'm unwrapping that second one because I finished that first one.
I was going to say, like how a smoker will light one cigarette with their last one?
Yeah.
Was there ever a time where they were both unwrapped so that there wasn't a moment that you would be without?
No. My sickness hasn't gotten that far yet, but okay. I'm definitely on the path.
Hey, listen, first of all, you do you, buddy. If 2 ice cream sandwiches is what's going to get you till tomorrow, you do that.
Well, I was in a binging mood because I'm addicted right now to this show on Netflix called Money Heist. Have you heard of this show,
I have
JJ?
heard of Money Heist.
So it's a show out of Spain. Its actual title is House of Paper. Netflix retitled it Money Heist, which is a dumb name. And I'm on season 2 right now. And my friend Allison was visiting in town, and she had to tell me about this show. And she's a native Spanish speaker. So as we're watching it, she's like telling me all the things they're getting wrong in the subtitles. And it's the kind of show where it's like really entertaining and really fun, but also really dumb. Like a lot of leaps of logic are taken, and it's just trying to twist and then twist and then twist every single episode. But damn, dude, I am hooked. And I haven't binged a show in a long time. All the shows I've been watching, like Disney Plus stuff, has been coming out once a week. And so I've been just keeping up with that when it comes out. So binging on a show that I had no idea about before got me in the binging mood, which is why I think I double dosed with ice cream sandwiches.
May I tell you about a show that I just binged?
What's that?
So it's been a long time since I've had a show that I was so anxious to watch that I thought about it during the day of I got to get home. And if I can get home now, I can maybe get through 2 episodes before it's bedtime. I watched The White Lotus on HBO. And so you have to understand from the get-go that there is something I love about shows that kind of show what it's like between the haves and the have-nots. And so a great example of that would be the show Party Down. Have you ever watched Party Down?
I've seen clips.
It is a brilliant idea for a show. It's about a catering company, and each episode takes place at an event that they're catering. So you never see these people's lives outside of them wearing their white shirts and having to serve super rich folks at something like a elementary school fundraiser where they need to fund $150,000 and it's just the super rich. So anyway, so I love shows like that. So Party Down's an example. And so someone said, you need to watch this show called The White Lotus, and it's on HBO Max. It's a 6-part miniseries. I said, okay, I will watch it. So The White Lotus is a super swanky resort in Hawaii, and the show starts with these people who are so wealthy and they're such VIPs at this resort that the resort actually brings them in by ferry so that they can see the beauty of the island rather than the parking lot.
Okay. And
the staff is waiting there and waving at them when they come by. And the show revolves around these people. One is a newly married couple where the guy is just a total and complete jerk. You can tell that he comes from a privileged background, and he won't let a small flaw in their room go by. He's we're paying for this. We're paying for this. And then his new wife, who realizes that she's made a horrible mistake 2 days into their marriage. There's a family where Steve Zahn is actually the dad. And,
kidding.
I like that guy. I feel like I've missed him and not seeing him and stuff.
Did you know that he is related to an ex-girlfriend of mine?
No joke.
I believe he's the second cousin of the bassoonist who I dated in high school.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, not kidding you at all. They're either cousins or second cousins, one of the two.
Well, I saw your almost family member then in the series. Like you were so close.
Yeah, we were real close.
You should have just gotten married just to invite him there.
Yeah.
So their daughter and son are with them on this vacation, and the daughter has brought a friend with. The son's socially awkward. The daughter is sort of like she's what you'd expect from like the ultra millennial, like the girl who's always reading like a book like Nietzsche or something like that.
Okay.
And then there's Jennifer Coolidge, who played Stifler's mom in the American Pie films, as well as a bunch of great roles in Christopher Guest movies. And she's a woman who's just lost her mother. And so she's come to this resort to spread her ashes. And it's you kind of bounce around from story to story to story. It is a ton of fun. And it's so funny because the things that this poor staff is having to do to make these people like comfortable is ridiculous. But now here's the thing that my big recommendation. The guy who plays the manager of the hotel is like Australian or New Zealand. And I know that those are two completely different like places and cultures, but that accent, it's like that Kiwi kind of accent. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Taika Waititi.
Yes, exactly. And he's got this mustache, but he's got this painted on grin that, you know, you can tell the second that he turns away from these people, you know, it's like son of a bitch. And without giving too much away in this movie, I saw something CGI'd that I had never seen CGI'd before. Poop.
A what?
Poop.
CGI poop.
Poop.
You knew it was CGI poop.
Yeah. Oh, it's clear. And
Okay.
specifically, it's somebody who's pooping.
Oh, so it's coming out of a butt.
Yeah. You see, you see like the silhouette of it.
Oh, you don't see it like crest?
No, you do. Just not directly. Like you see the shadow of it happening. And I know that sounds like bizarre. And there's probably a lot of people who are like, well, I'm never going to trust JJ for a recommendation ever again. But I was like, well, this scene clearly needed to happen. And I think that it's important for actors to take their craft seriously. But once you poop on film, there's no going back. So I'm sure they're like, all right, now just bend over. Now just give me a grunt. And
so was
okay.
was it CGI poop or CGI poop shadow?
It was CGI, both actually.
Okay.
Because at one point you don't see like the whole human being. You see it like plopping down. And then
if I saw that, I'd be like, hey, I'm paying for this. Show me some real poop.
Well, and that's the thing. At one point, you do get to see the poop, and it's not now. It's a physical prop. So it's really like it's the Star Wars version of how far can we push poop.
Wouldn't it be amazing to see the line item in the budget for the poop effects?
Yes, absolutely. But you know, like these are the fecal matters that they had to deal with when making this show.
Right. No.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, the White Lotus, easily one of the funniest and like most thought-provoking shows I've seen in a long time. I really, really enjoy it. It's on HBO Max. I highly, if you happen to have that service, JJ Meets World listeners, I highly recommend it.
Check out White Lotus if you have HBO Max. Check out Money Heist, also known as House of Paper, if you have Netflix. But
and if you've got Paramount Plus, what made you make that decision?
Yeah, I mean, Star Trek. Come on, just rip it.
Hey, do you know that today is National Star Trek Day when we're recording this?
I didn't know there was a National Star Trek Day.
Today's National Star Trek Day, and it actually made me think of our previous episodes, the one with Greg Carlson, where we talked about Star Wars and Star Trek and kind of the fandom behind both of those.
Right.
It's not to answer the age-old question, which is better. It's just, here's some facts. And then the Uncle Baseball episode as well.
Okay, speaking of holidays, I got to give you a big thank you, JJ, because JJ, for those of you who don't know, just did something really special for my dad. There's JJ in his powers and connections here in town was able to get the mayor of Fargo to declare the other day Bill Lucas, aka Oli Day in Fargo, which is pretty special. But then at the same time, the very next day, I get a text from my sister going, "Hey, question about Dad's holiday. Is that just for this year, or is that going to be every year?" And I said, "Well, I think it's officially an every year thing." "Oh, yeah, we're going to have to celebrate that every year now, aren't we?" So Dad's now got a second birthday in the year. So thank you for that, JJ.
So interesting enough, it was supposed to be on his last day of portraying Ole, a Norwegian character at our local AAA baseball team. And it rained that night. So actually, I just got back from the ballpark where I got to present him with his plaque.
Oh, so you did the actual presentation today?
Yeah. So the team, the Red Hawks, made it into the playoffs in a wild card slot. So they got one more game pending a win tonight. If they win, they'll get to keep going. But they got this special like one-off, and so we were still able to make it happen. And I got to present him with that tonight. He cried like a little baby when I gave it to him on the radio, which is exactly what I wanted from him. I just wanted like supreme emotions. And he also, you'll enjoy this, he's decided that September 2nd will be Ole's birthday.
Okay.
So he'll just celebrate that going forward.
Got it. Well, that makes things a little bit easier. I did something today, JJ, that I have not done since before the pandemic locked everything down last year in March.
What would that be?
I saw a movie film in a movie film theater.
Oh my.
Yeah. So I was really pumped because I'm a big MCU fan. And Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is out right now, which is the newest movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so I went and I decided to treat myself to a 3:30 showing of it at Marcus Theaters. And I was in the ultra screen and I was the only person there, which felt amazing. I loved it.
Okay.
And I picked the seat I wanted. I went up there. I took my shoes off. And I enjoyed the film, laughing as hard as I wanted to. And I didn't even worry about if I had to fart. I just let it happen.
You took your shoes off.
Yeah, I wanted to be comfortable.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Inside a building.
I didn't put them on the ground or anything. I was in the Dream Lounger.
Okay, so first let me ask this. Was the last movie you saw in theaters Sonic the Hedgehog?
It was.
Okay. So just to put that kind of in the back of everyone's mind, that the last cinema experience was the surprisingly decent Sonic the Hedgehog, from
which we reviewed on this show.
Yeah, from February 2020.
How excited are you that Idris Elba is going to play Knuckles in the sequel?
I think it's going to be great. I would watch that guy do anything, you know that?
Yep, that dude is fantastic. But anyways.
So
I saw Shang-Chi.
I want to talk about this, and I want to start by saying for the last year and a half, I've been calling it Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And when I started watching the movie and I was like, I've been pronouncing his name wrong this whole time, I felt kind of bad about it. And then there's a wonderful scene where they kind of discuss his name. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm a little validated here by saying, like, listen, white folks, you know, don't worry too much about this. You know, we're gonna correct you in a nice, fun way. Okay, so before we delve way deep into it, were you familiar with this storyline at all going into it?
Not the storyline itself that was in the movie, but the character I was familiar with. So when my dad gave me, at the age of 5, all of his old Marvel 1970s Bronze Age comics, the pile was Spider-Man, Captain America, Power Man and Iron Fist, Shang-Chi, and a couple of Westerns. And so I knew about Shang-Chi from a young age, but I only had 1 or 2 issues. And it wasn't anything that I could recall. I still have those issues, but no specific storylines were coming out of that I was able to recognize in this movie. But I had always hoped that we would be getting the opportunities to see the characters that just weren't as popular as, say, Captain America and Iron Man and Spider-Man in movies. And so when it had been announced a few years ago that Shang-Chi was going to happen, I've just been pumped for it and anticipating it. You know, I love Marvel. I love martial arts films. And I'm always in the mood for a really awesome hero story. And so, you know, I walked in just really excited, and, you know, we'll go into the nitty gritty, but I'll kind of give my quick overviews. I really enjoyed it. I had a fun time watching the movie. It felt so good to be in the cinema again. And maybe I'm surprising you with this, JJ, but I have been rocking a major crush on Awkwafina for quite some time.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
And so seeing her in this movie was a delight. Why does that not surprise you?
Because you and I are both attracted to talent.
Yeah.
And while
she's so funny.
Yeah, to me, like, that's the thing, is she holds her own comedically in this movie. And dare say, like, I could have actually used more of her in this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. More Awkwafina, please. And she really does seem like she's going on a similar path of Shang-Chi, but hey, let's not go too far afield. So JJ, when did you see this movie?
I saw it opening night. So Thursday before its opening run, during Labor Day weekend. And, you know, some inside baseball for people. September has traditionally been a dumping ground for studios. Things that they don't think are going to go anywhere. You know, with the exception of It, most movies that are released in September have never really done any box office power. It's back to school. People are still trying to get the last days of summer. There's football has started. It just is a bad time of the year to try and get people to sit in a theater. And so when I saw that Marvel had moved this film to September, I thought to myself, like, oh my God, does this mean it's not good? You know, do they know something I don't? But clearly what they knew was this movie is good enough that it's going to pull people in. And also the fact that they're not going to bow down to Labor Day, because this is, to me, this is the Marvel movie that's meant to make more money in the foreign box office than it is in the U.S. domestic box office.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't know all that about September as well with the movie industry and ticket sales.
It's just, and it's funny because the same thing used to also be true about March, and then Marvel was like, oh, sorry, we're gonna make some serious cash.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a testament to the strength of the Marvel brand. Is like, listen, if it's a Marvel movie, people are going to come see it because they know it's going to be highly entertaining, and you're not going to be disappointed in it, and it's going to make the time just fly by. And one thing that was really clear to me at the very beginning of this movie and throughout, one thing that this movie did that I thought the Black Widow film actually did not do, is I thought Shang-Chi did a really great job of expanding the Marvel universe and giving us more of its dimensions and depth, and making us wonder about, you know, pockets of areas that we haven't heard about, and connecting things and teasing things that are coming up, because they are clearly laying the groundwork for another big event coming down the line. Before we go any further, then, I guess what we should probably say is, if you have not seen Shang-Chi yet, spoiler alert, you may want to stop listening at this point, because going forward, JJ and I are not going to be pulling our punches when it comes to talking about story points in the movie. So definitely go to your local theater and watch Shang-Chi before listening to the rest of this episode.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to give you a 5 count until we start dropping spoilers here, there, everywhere. 1, 2, 3.
Wait, on 5 or like 5 and then go?
5 and then go.
5 and then go.
4.
You should probably start back at 1 because I interrupted you again. Sorry.
1, 2.
Are you going to say go or should I say go? Are we both going to?
I'm glad you brought that up because I was really thinking about that.
Okay.
And I think I want you to say go because I'm going to be out of breath by the time I get there.
So should I wait? Should go be like in the same beat as 5? So it's almost 6?
I was so glad that they brought back Trevor Slattery.
Absolutely. I laughed so hard at that moment.
Here's the thing. I know that there's a lot of people who threw a lot of hate to Iron Man 3 for the Mandarin storyline and the fact that it wasn't the real Mandarin, that it was essentially people who took this idea and they ran with it. Now, that being said, you saw the Marvel one shot that they filmed where the Mandarin is in prison, right? Where Trevor Slattery is in prison and then gets kidnapped by the actual 10 Rings.
Yeah, I think they call it All Hail the King, don't they?
Yes, it is. To me, I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was so good. And Ben Kingsley is just so funny in this role.
Mhm.
And when he shows up in this, it is the perfect amount of comic relief. And in all honesty, it's a character I missed.
Right.
And I thought he was used perfectly in this. So there's my first spoiler. Let's start from the very beginning of this.
Okay.
So as you mentioned, Tucker, it's fun to see how the Marvel universe is going to expand beyond just like our Captain America, Hulk, Thor, the people we've kind of come to know. But I thought it was interesting that we're going to play off the fact that this superpower has existed for ages already.
Yeah, we get this really, really neat magical artifact, the 10 Rings, which we find out has been utilized by this sort of evil overlord who ends up being Shang-Chi's father, who has been using it to increase his lifespan and, raise giant armies and gather power and money and all these things. And the rings themselves are of mysterious origin. And but what they can do seems to be limited only to the imagination of the person wielding them. And so he's using them to decimate whole armies. He's extending his lifespan, and so on and so forth. And so it becomes this really cool new object that makes you wonder what it may hint at to the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then what we don't see coming is the guy falls in love, right?
Yep.
And decides, you know what? This woman who I've met is someone worth growing old for. And so I'm going to put the 10 Rings away and not continue my my age freeze and start to raise a family. And then, things go awry from there. And it's not long before we kind of jump to the present with Shang-Chi in, I don't know if he's in San Francisco or what city he's in at that time.
It's San Fran.
It is San Fran. Yep. Okay. And he's going by the name Sean, which is a pretty fantastic scene for Awkwafina to give him shit for later on.
To me, what I thought was brilliant about this is they hop into the story without too much exposition, right?
Right.
The beginning of this is very quick. If I'm going to throw it out there, like they cover a lot of ground very fast. And what I like is they understand that the audience is smart enough to grasp these things. Right. Yeah. And it's almost like you're being told a bedtime story at the very beginning. Totally. And so you get into this, you find out that he's parking cars. He's got a best friend who's played by Awkwafina, and her grandmother, pretty much alludes to the fact that these two, are sort of meant for each other, but you never really get any romantic entanglement between the two of them. You get a deep friendship, but there's no kiss. Did you find that to be an interesting, like, kind of plot point?
Yeah, I actually really found it refreshing that you could have two heterosexual people of different genders who are not being prescripted to fall in love and live happily ever after in something. Who knows where it's going to go from there? But I found it really, really refreshing. And of course, grandmas from that era of regardless of your background are going to question that and go, when are you two going to get married? But it was pretty cool to see that they were pretty chill about it.
Yeah. And so pretty quick into the beginning of this, they've kind of telegraphed that he has a pendant that is going to play off later on that his mother gave him. And then a bunch of brutes show up in this bus with one of what I thought at first was like, eye rolly, but I liked it more and more. The character's name is Razor Fist, and he's a guy who's missing his right arm, but he's got a giant, like Swiss Army knife that comes out of it that he can use to slice and dice up an accordion bus. So in San Francisco, you get this fun bus chase sequence, and then you find out.
By the way, what was killing me during that entire time? I was laughing so hard, was that guy on his phone who we first met in Spider-Man Homecoming, who from the street goes, "Hey, Spider-Man, do a flip." And he's like live streaming the whole thing on the bus.
Hey, it's your boy. It's your boy so-and-so. Check out what's happening on this bus here.
Yeah, I've got some martial arts training, so I'll let you know what my rating is on this fight scene. And one thing I was thinking in that bus scene is, I love martial arts movies. And one of the biggest disappointments for the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles movies was that I saw almost no martial arts. It felt like it was a bunch of them being shielded from bullets and throwing things.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, you get these incredible martial arts action sequences that are fast and kinetic, but you can see all the action. You can see exactly what's going on. And kudos to the stunt work at the MCU. These were some of the best fight sequences that I've seen in a Marvel movie.
One of the things that I like the most about it is, first of all, it reminded me of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Like the first time I went and saw that, because the martial arts in this is very flowy, and it almost is more like dance to me than it is, like fighting. So I love the fact that, to me, you're watching something, he gets kicked out of the side of the bus, and then he like swoops around and breaks himself back in another window. And it doesn't look like it's over the top. It looks like it's somebody who's, figuring out the moves as he goes along. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in any of these superhero movies, there needs to be some kind of an explanation as to why the hero has the fighting prowess that they have. With Captain America, it was the fact that he was given the super soldier serum and trained during World War II. With Iron Man, it's that he has this fantastic suit that gives him the abilities he needs to do. With Black Widow, she goes through the Red Room training program in Russia. And with Shang, you find that he's been trained like every day by his father since he was a child, and that the whole point was to turn him into someone that was nearly impossible to kill. And so when the fighting starts, you're totally there. You're like, yep, this totally makes sense. Awesome. And it's really fun to watch Awkwafina figure out that her friend for the past 10 years turns out to be this martial arts master who does not need to be defended by her jumping in the way, singing the lyrics to Hotel California by the Eagles.
What a great defensive move on her part, right? That's just genius.
And an awesome recurring joke.
And then we immediately get into the action of the movie, going forward. Like, he's missing this. He realizes he got a postcard from his estranged sister, and he has to, fly across the world to try and warn her that their father is coming for them. And so you get a funny interrupted like flashback sequence while they're on the plane. And also I love that they're flying like in coach on the plane. And so everyone around them is more or less listening to what he's explaining to her. And they get into this real quick, and they talk about these things, and like, I was an assassin for my father, and he sent me off to kill, and I couldn't, and so I ran away. And so immediately you kind of like, you're siding with him, like you're watching this thing realizing like his father is just an evil bastard, right? Like he sent his own kid out to kill, how dare he? What a scumbucket. And so he arrives and goes to find his sister, who is running a mixed martial arts like wager house in a building that's under construction.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like a giant fight club with multiple fight rooms that are each being streamed on the internet, and people can bet on them. I'm going to have to see the movie a second time now, because I'm sure there were plenty of Easter eggs hidden in there. The only one that I was able to pick out was one of the fighters had the same extremist powers from Iron Man 3. There are a bunch of Iron Man 3 tie-ins into this movie, but I'll have to go back and see some of the other fighters that are in combat. But the big payoff is one that was actually seen in the teaser trailers, was that there's a fight between Wong, who's a character from the Doctor Strange films, and the Abomination, who was the villain in The Incredible Hulk. Which was a fun little action sequence. But the thing that really intrigued me was you kind of find out that they're actually buddies who seem to be training together for some reason. And so that's one of the first big It's one of the first big. It's one of the first big question marks that they dangle in front of you that clearly something is going on outside of this movie that we'll be finding out more about later.
Well, you in a weird way, you find out that they are scamming the people who are betting on these matches.
Oh, is that what they're doing?
Yeah, because he's like you're supposed to pull your punches on that one. So they've already figured out what they're doing, which to me begs an even bigger question because the last time we saw Abomination, he was messing up Harlem and like was trying to kill Hulk.
That is so funny. I didn't actually think of it in that terms, but you're right. Like I knew Wong was like, you're supposed to pull your punches, but I thought that meant that they were maybe hanging out and training together. But that makes so much more sense because in Infinity War, Doctor Strange references the fact that Wong has no money.
Yep.
And in towards the end of the film, Wong even goes ahead and just takes a drink off someone's table and chugs it down because he doesn't have access to it. That makes so much sense now. I love Wong. I love his character so much. And I'm really hoping that he gets to have like a major action sequence in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness because he hasn't gotten that yet.
He also uses easily one of my favorite moves, which is he creates a portal while he's being punched at. So he actually has Abomination punch himself through one of his portals. And I thought that was genius.
Right. And I can't wait to find out, too, what Abomination has been up to and how Abomination and Wong came to be conspirators in this fraud.
Right. So he reunites with his sister just in the moments when all of a sudden, Dad and his 10 Rings forces show up to the fight club, and there is a side of the building on scaffolding fight that, to be quite honest, a couple of times like made me a little queasy.
Yeah.
From thinking, I was like, oh my God, they're gonna fall. Oh God, they're gonna fall.
Quick, save Awkwafina. Save Awkwafina.
Yeah, that was one moment where I was just sort of like, stop looking back. He told you to get to the elevator. Just go to the friggin' elevator. And so this fight sequence takes place, and you get a better feeling for a character as well here, who is sort of in this kabuki mask, and you can tell is one of the like top guards in the 10 Rings forces. Now, like the 10 Rings, here's the other thing too. I love the fact that he was talking about this guy just wants power. He doesn't want to rule over the world. He wants to topple governments. He wants to have the most, wealth, but not because he's crazy, but because he's driven for this stuff, right? And so it's not like he has an unstoppable army of ice kings. He trains like essentially like martial arts masters so that he can swoop in and have military coups and things like that. And so no wonder this guy was never on anyone's radar. Like you don't see Doctor Strange talking about, the 10 Rings, and because he wasn't posing a global threat.
Right.
And I find that very intriguing because the one thing they're going to have to deal with, I think, going forward in the MCU is who's worthy of the attention of a superhero and who's not.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because let's face it, there are horrible crimes that are taking place every single day, but Captain America isn't using, the Quinjet from X-Men to go fight that.
Right. Well, and I mean, they actually make reference to it in Spider-Man Homecoming. Iron Man does when he says like, oh, this is a little below the Avengers pay grade.
Right.
When talking about arms smugglers.
So I think this movie introduces the fact that like there's a global world out there that are just not being dealt with in any way. Right. And so like until it becomes somebody's pet project in the, Avengers, we're going to find out more and more of these things that have existed throughout time.
Well, and it makes you wonder too, like, are we going to get smaller teams that aren't as large as the Avengers, say the Defenders, or other teams like them that will start taking on this kind of stuff? That'd be pretty cool to see it tie in. I'm wondering too, I'm excited to see what references to this film that we're going to be seeing in the upcoming Marvel movies. I mean, we've got Spider-Man coming out in December, right? And Eternals comes out in November, I believe.
Yep. Ooh,
yeah,
it's like a lot of stuff. Bing, bang, boom.
Yeah, good time to be a Marvel fan. So, his dad gets them, and he brings them back to the compound, and they find out that his father is hearing the voice of their dead mother calling to him, saying that she is being trapped in this sort of mystical home that she hails from, when they thought she was dead, and that the father wants to get her back and free her. And his children and Awkwafina realize that there's no way that she's alive. We saw her die, which is revealed later how that happens. And the father says, well, if we can't get her back, then we're going to burn that whole place to the ground. And they realize that their father has completely reverted to his sort of authoritarian ways, where he wants to go in and kill people because he thinks he's gonna bring back something that he wants.
And, to me, what's very interesting about this is the dad's not wrong, right? Like, you understand where he's coming from. This
Sure.
man loved this woman so much, and you find out later on that she's dead because of the sins of his past.
Right.
You find out that the wife was murdered by a gang in their home after he had given up the 10 rings, because he had done them dirty at one point, and so they came to take revenge. And he breaks with reality. He completely loses it, and he starts training his son to be an assassin. He puts the rings back on, and to me, I understand where he's coming from. Like, he hears his wife calling to him, and that she's trapped behind this gate, and he knows he knows she came from this mystical village, and so of course this could be possible. And he's done all of this research about finding it and getting there, and he wants his children. He wants them to come with him. He brings them back to the compound, but they're not prisoners right away. They have dinner together.
Right.
His daughter goes and stays in her old room.
Right. And you also kind of learn too, through all the story, the exposition that's been going on, is that after his wife died, he pretty much starts to ignore his daughter completely. And he, stuck in his old ways, only allows men to train in martial arts and become a part of his army. And so he basically starts to ignore his daughter entirely. Yeah. But what she does is she effectively just watches the training from the shadows in secret, and then trains herself so hard that she actually becomes superior to the rest of the warriors, even though her father still doesn't really want to give her the respect that she has absolutely earned. She's also carrying a chip on her shoulder because her brother leaves the family at the age of 15 or 16 and does not come back. So she feels completely abandoned by the two men in her lives. And so she's bonding with Awkwafina, and they're kind of getting to know each other better. And she's figuring out what else she needs to become and what she needs to do. But the two siblings, clearly, while they have their father's martial strength, they have their mother's morality and heart. And so they refuse to help their father with this. They think he's crazy. Clearly she's dead, and he's willing to take innocent life just to do it. We're going to stop. We're going to stand up to him right now. And when they do that, he puts them all in jail, where we meet Trevor Slattery.
Yep. And what a refreshing moment immediately with Trevor Slattery. I bet you really loved this.
Oh, I loved it so much. I just love Ben Kingsley, and Ben Kingsley's performance as Trevor is just I don't know if you can hear that. There's a loud motorcycle driving past my place.
Well, I thought it was a drone.
Yeah, it's still going. Goodness. Trevor Slattery is just such a fun character, and it was an absolute joy to see him there. And it's fun to see anything that gives more connective tissue to previous films. And it makes sense to bring him back, since in Iron Man 3, he was the character impersonating the father under the name of the Mandarin. And so you get the backstory that Shang-Chi's father had actually, kidnapped him, or was going to kill him in jail, decided to keep him as a court jester, and he's been living in this dungeon ever since.
Yeah, and he's He does a line he's got lines from Hamlet. He's been rehearsing a play on his own, a one-man show for when they arrive. You also get introduced to probably one of Marvel's best moves as far as like a holiday toy, which is this. It's based off of a real like ancient Asian culture, like a mythical beast.
Okay.
And it looks like a furry footstool with no face, but the wings of like a peacock.
Yeah.
And Trevor has named him Morris. And he can speak to Morris. He's been there long enough where he can understand the little like of Morris. And then we get an exciting adventure. So they also put a clock on this about how gaining access to this mystical village only can take place when this forest that essentially protects, it's a bamboo forest that protects the outside of the village. And so Morris tells them that they can get them there. So they, have a great breakout scene, and they make it to the village, essentially one night before their father is set to arrive in this village with his army, to burn it to the ground and free his wife from behind this dragon scale wall that in the side of a mountain. So when they get there, you meet the people of this mystical village who've been given the task by their ancestors to guard this gate. And inside of the gate is a soul eater. And he's got all these little minions. And really the closest thing I can describe it to is like, it looks like a demon. It looks like a demon from the Bible.
Yep, just like a crazy demon with a bunch of little teeny tiny winged demons. And it does exactly what the name says. It attaches to you. It cannot be killed by normal weaponry. You need to use weapons made from dragon scales. And when it gets a hold of you, or any of its little parademons get a hold of you, they literally just pull the soul right out of your body, and that's how they kill you. And then the little ones take the souls and they give them to the big soul eater.
To me, it reminded me of like a video game, like that kind of like, logic is where you've got to defeat this person before they get enough souls to be unstoppable, right? Because every person that these little mini demons are killing is fueling the big demon.
Right.
You get some great training sequences while you're there. Awkwafina gets a little funny side mission to become an archer, in which she gets some really funny lines. Like she gets some really funny lines talking to some of the people of this village. It's also the first chance for these children to connect to the memory of their mother. Their aunt, essentially like gives them both gifts, knowing that these children eventually would make their way back to this space. And we have this hurry up and wait for the father to arrive and this village to put on its best possible defense. Excuse me. They talk about earlier in the movie about how the power for these people comes from the heart and soul of their dragon. And their dragon is sort of the thing that powers this village in its mystical ways. And so you're going to see the dragon eventually, but the dragon doesn't show up until about halfway through this fight.
Right. And the dragon is awesome.
Yeah.
The dragon design is badass.
It's designed to look like a koi fish.
Right.
And the coloring is awesome. And it's not a dragon like you think of from Lord of the Rings. It's a, more traditional Chinese style dragon. And it just, to me, the whole battle sequence it's fun to watch. It's refreshing enough. It's CG heavy. So you got to know that going into it. It's CG heavy.
It is a Marvel movie.
Right. 100%. Right. And you get the scene where, it's like, oh, are the rings going to choose the father? Or are they going to choose the son? The father in a way, I feel like kind of gets redeemed at the end when he realizes that he's been blinded by this, and kind of like, did you kind of get a little allusion to Luke and Darth at the end there?
For sure. I mean, the father, while he is a bad guy, no question, even though he loves his children, he's a bad guy. but he's not just some stock cartoonish mustache twirling villain that you get in a lot of not just superhero movies, but action and fantasy movies. You know, he actually cares about something. You understand why he does the thing that he does in that moment, even though he's not making the right choice. And he does have some level of redemption, which is important for his kids. You know, Shang says to him, you know, we need you. We really need you. And at the very least, he's able to, give the 10 rings, or at least release the 10 rings towards Shang so that he can be part of the team that saves the day.
Right.
So it is nice to have that redemption at the end. And in the meantime, you're basically seeing all these other characters, Shang and Awkwafina's character, Katie, right? And Shang's sister, whose name I'm blanking on at the very moment, as they all kind of become the heroes that they were meant to become. And it makes you wonder what path they're going to be going on as the MCU goes forward. You also get this amazing moment with Trevor Slattery where it looks like he's dead, and the little critter Morris is talking to him, and he goes, "It's just a performance. Now lay down."
Yeah.
It absolutely murdered me when Slattery's giving the speech about how watching Planet of the Apes made him want to be an actor, because
if they
could
can do
teach
it,
those monkeys to act, he could clearly act too.
when he's giving them the directions, and he's like, Morris says hard left here, and like he's so nonchalant about it, right? He just. And they use him the perfect amount, right? He doesn't overstay his welcome. It's nice just to watch him do what he can do. Ben Kingsley, he just chews up every moment he's on screen, and I can't get enough of him. I just love him. I love him.
It was absolutely necessary to have him in the movie. I'm really happy that they were able to bring Trevor back. I wonder what's going to happen to Trevor going forward. You know, these Marvel films, what they're really one of their many strengths is the fact that they can create characters who were not really in the comics or weren't really a big deal in the comics and make them massively important and starring characters. Say Korg in Thor Ragnarok, you know. I absolutely love Korg, and I absolutely love Trevor. And you want to see more of them. They should do a team up movie with all those characters together.
Oh,
the ones that didn't have their own comics.
Yeah, I think that there's a real potential here. There's some real fun stuff coming forward. So at the end of the movie, everything is, the day is saved.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. And then Awkwafina and Shang-Chi go back to their couples date with their friends, and Wong shows up and he says, like, you now are on a different path. Your life is on a different path. You're now heroes, whether you like it or not. And then
we get a couple killer cameos from Bruce Banner and Carol Danvers.
Yeah, which, okay, that was the thing we probably talked about the most when my group of people went there. And a couple of things we talked about is like, okay, so we see Bruce Banner, not Smart Hulk. We see Bruce Banner, and he still is nursing his arm from what you would assume is the snap.
Yep.
You see Carol Danvers in there, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. Brie Larson's got another movie coming out here in the not too distant future. And then we got into an argument that was pretty quickly, gone over. And I said, this movie takes place in the future because it is after the snap has been reversed.
Yep.
And don't forget, that was a 5-year jump.
Yes.
So essentially, this movie is taking place in like 2024, maybe 2025.
I don't know. Maybe. I'm not quite sure.
So, like there is a little bit of a time jump based on this, like from where the events of, let's say, Black Panther took place.
Sure. That's one of the things in comic book language and continuity is timelines are always a little fuzzy and squishy.
Right.
Like you kind of just do what the story calls for. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this is if the timeline of Shang-Chi is in 2024, 2025.
Yeah. And to me, like that says something, right? Because now you're talking about a post snap world. And that's one of the things I want to see them explore more. That's one of the reasons I liked Homecoming or Far From Home so much, is I like the idea of exploring a world where people disappeared and then they came back.
Right.
You know,
there's a couple references to that in this movie, including at one point, Shang walks past a bunch of posters that say Blip Sync, which is for some kind of a lip sync concert. And so I want to know what the Blip Sync concert is like.
Yeah, to me, I think that this movie was so much fun. I knew nothing about it going in. And so I had a wonderful time watching this movie. And it makes me excited to see more of these characters. It certainly makes me excited to know, like, okay, so are we going to see a cameo in the upcoming Spider-Man movie, since Doctor Strange will be a part of that, and that means we'll be in the the Sanctum Sanctorum or whatever. I don't know. We'll see.
Now, what do you think is going to be going on with the sister? Because one thing that Marvel will do is at the end of a film, they'll put, Iron Man will return or Captain America will return. And at the end of this film, it says the 10 rings will return. And you see that his sister is now the new leader of the 10 rings. She's opened up the organization so both men and women can fight in it and be a part of it. Obviously, Razor Fist. Razor Fist is working under her. I would say, while Razor Fist is a great character, that actor is pretty bad.
Oh God, awful.
He's not a good actor, but he looks the part, right?
He was the right height.
right height, and he's got muscles.
Yep.
And he seems pretty dumb. So hey, it works. Sorry, dude. You're great. But what do you think is going to be the return of the 10 rings? Do you think that gets its own film or a Disney Plus series? Or do you think that is more or less part of the next chapter in the saga of Shang-Chi?
Well, an interesting thing is I noticed in one of the final battles, you don't need all 10 rings to harness the power of the rings.
Right.
Like he was doing some stuff with 5 rings.
Right.
So are they going to split them amongst brother and sister?
Ooh,
so
maybe.
that each of them have half the power? Does this become a story where she becomes the one seeking power and he's got to put her in her place to some extent? I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do moving forward with this thing, but it opens up the idea that, there's these other mythical areas of the globe that we might see. To me, the 10 rings keep you from aging. And so, does this character want to stop aging, right. At one point? And I don't know. I'm very excited to see this. I also will say that it was refreshing to see a movie that had really well done subtitles. I thought this movie was just a knock out of the park, start to finish. I had a great time.
Well, and also along the lines of the actual object, the 10 rings, when they're talking with Wong in the Sanctum Sanctorum later on at the end of the film, he's making reference to the fact that they're actually not aware of this particular artifact. They don't know where it came from. They don't know. Its origin is still mysterious, but what they can tell is that it is somehow acting as a beacon. It's calling out to something, and they're not quite sure what that thing is yet. So clearly that is part of the connective tissue going into whatever the next major Marvel event is. And right now, what the big rumored event is going to be is that, and I feel pretty confident it's going to be something along this line. It's going to be Secret Wars. Which is a storyline that happened in the comic books where it's basically a bunch of different universes fighting each other, a bunch of different. It's another massive character crossover event, which the Russo brothers are rumored to be coming back for, apparently, if that were to happen. So it could be something where the villain that kicks that off, I think in the comic books it was the Beyonder, but who knows what it's going to be here. It could be that the 10 rings are signaling to that. Of course, upcoming in the Eternals, in the trailers, it's talked about how when the snap was undone and everyone came back, it created a power surge that acted as a signal to these race of evil beings called the Deviants. And so clearly the snap and post-snap are having these reverberations across the universe and the multiverse. Tie that in with what we've been seeing going in Loki and in Scarlet Witch and Vision, and what we will be seeing coming up in the Spider-Man movie, which is clearly has the multiverse in it, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. It's going to be really crazy to see what the next major crossover event is going to be. Not to mention, we've got Fantastic Four on the way, and at some point, the X-Men are going to be getting reintroduced into the MCU.
Oh my God! Did you just nerd out there or what?
Whoa! Yes, I did.
I think no matter what is, I haven't left a Marvel movie without having a lot of fun lately. And that's
me too.
That's what I want. And I know that, even if you've read the comics, there's still something fun and original to find there. I think there's a lot of rumors about people saying like the superhero genre has hit its peak and we need a break from it. I couldn't disagree more. I love the fact that like you said, between September and December, we've got 3 Marvel movies. Awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, just put it into my veins. Like,
right.
I want all the superhero movies. We went since the dawn of the 20th century with almost no good superhero movies. We got like Batman and Superman, and then now we're finally getting what I want. And just pile them on. More, please. More, please. More, please.
Also, remind me of this after we see it, okay? But I don't think the Eternals looks very good.
I think it looks awesome.
Yeah, I disagree. I look at that and I'm like, there's nothing about either of the trailers I've seen that make me excited to go see that movie. And I know that Marvel's going to prove me wrong because they're just that awesome, but there's nothing that says you need to come see this and look at the storytelling. It also kind of hurts the fact that like Chloe Zhao, who directed it, I hated Nomadland. And that was the movie she won her Academy Award for. And I'm like, God, that movie was boring.
Well, I have not seen that movie, but we will have to maybe do an episode on the Eternals when that comes out.
Absolutely. Okay, Tucker, let's put this one to bed. And if people don't know, you should always stick through the credits of JJ Meets World because we also include a stinger in every single episode, which means 250 plus of those little beauties. Go back. Somebody just go back, and listen to all of them in one long shot. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. As much as I like Awkwafina, I really disliked the Ocean's 8. And I'm not talking about the movie of Sandra Bullock. I'm talking about the secret ocean that you can only find on some maps.